Hey, everybody. Barb Higgins here, welcoming you to episode 221 of A Thousand Tiny Steps. You'll be listening to this on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and I will be sending an email and posting a blog from a car traveling to Pennsylvania. I'm recording it on Tuesday, the 18th. It's a crisp, sunny November day. The leaves are blowing off all of the trees now. It's really beginning to look like winter. Thanksgiving. It's the month, November, everyone does 30 days of thanks, and it's like this packaged time to practice gratitude and being thankful for things. And there are many years that I've dove into this wholeheartedly. All right, I'm going to do a blog every day for 30 days, and what am I thankful for? And sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes it just feels canned. And sometimes, quite frankly, I don't feel grateful at all. Even in my times of not feeling grateful, I try to live it in a spirit of gratitude. And if that sounds impossible, it's probably because it is. These last couple of weeks, this month of November has been incredibly tricky. Lots and lots of things happening all at the same time. As I head into my 64th Thanksgiving as a human being on the planet, I'm reeling from a handful of things. Having a very full house is incredibly difficult. Having my mom move in has been easier than I thought, but still incredibly difficult. Navigating Jack's relationship with iPhones and tablets that are available to him around the house is incredibly difficult. Figuring out how to manage a schedule and sticking to it and putting myself first sometimes is incredibly difficult. Are you feeling grateful yet? Am I getting you in the Thanksgiving spirit? Good. Because that's where I'm at right now. When I woke up this morning and I was thinking of the podcast episode that played last week, but is today as I record, I knew I had to create an email. And my emails are sort of mini blogs, and I try to keep them balanced between what's going on in my actual life and the theme of the podcast or the blog. And as I sat down and began to type at 6 o'clock in the morning with the sun just coming up through the trees, Jack woke up. And so there was no writing an email. And I have to remind myself in those moments that I won't lie on my deathbed and say, so glad I pushed Jack aside and wrote that email. I won't remember the email. I'll remember Jack. So I had a good morning, but I still needed to piece together an email before day's end and come up with a podcast episode because I had been woefully behind in getting these recorded for my editor. And the word emergence came to mind. And the word emergence has a couple of different meanings, which I'll share with you. But it immediately brought to mind a friend that I had years ago in Boston. I can see his face. He was much older than me. I cannot for the life of me remember his name. He was much older than me and friends with, sort of loosely connected to the greater running community in Boston, outside of BU. I was having a hard time once. And he said, emergence. And he looked in my face. Emergence. And I didn't really know what he meant. And he said, think of a river. And I've used this analogy many times. A lazy river, wide, gentle. You can put a tube in there and float down and chit chat with your friends and have a picnic in your inner tube. It's a lazy river. And rivers that flow that way are murky. You can't see the bottom and the water can get thick and crusty and it isn't always the healthiest. And so invariably, the river will begin to narrow or perhaps encounter rocks and changes in terrain and the speed of the water picks up and the churn of the water starts and the rocks makes the travel of the water over them painful. It's a tumultuous time. Anything that lives in the river, going over those rocks is getting battered about. It's not comfortable. At the bottom of those rapids, at the bottom of a waterfall, the water is crystal clear. It's been purified. It's gone through emergence. The process from lazy, murky river to crystal clear river is painful. It's a change process. And as I wrote the word, I wasn't thinking of any of that. I was thinking about the fact that right now, my life is utterly painful in a million different ways, while simultaneously being sort of just fine. There's nothing wrong with a slow-flowing, murky river. A scheduled appointment with Carolina cut my email writing short, and I had to stop mid-email. I sit in my car for my sessions with Carolina because they're online. I go to the cemetery. And today was a day where I was battered by shadows and little flicks in my peripheral vision, like somebody was coming up to the car. Sometimes I feel I can see the spirits that hover there. Other times it's just a sunny day in the cemetery. Today was an energetic day. It was just tumultuous is the word that comes to mind. I begin my session with Carolina and she brings up that change is painful. I'm talking about things that I need to change in my life. And She reminds me how much I try to keep things the same. Hold on, keep the same, stay the same, stay the same. And I do. And I've used the analogy of the movie Homeless to Harvard, where there's a scene where the little daughter just wants everything to stay the same. And of course, nothing stays the same. And in her efforts to keep it the same, it blows up even worse. Boy, did that scene resonate with me when I watched it, and it resonates now because here it is in my brain. So, emergence. What is emergence? How does it relate to me right now? So, emergence, the process of coming into view or becoming exposed after being concealed. Okay, that is ominous to me. You're becoming exposed after being concealed. It's like a secret being let out. It's like finding something, like people finding something out about you that they didn't know before, and now it's open and there for everyone to see. That feels ominous to me. I have two things in my life right now, and I have last week's and the weeks before's podcast episodes that relate to this form of emergence. My whole situation at Bo and really revealing what happened to me and reading the actual words of the people involved. And anyone listening who knows of the situation will know exactly who I'm talking about. That feels me leaving exposed. That what was hidden, maybe not hidden, but hidden from my mouth, is now out there. It reminds me of, maybe changing your clothes and the door flies open and everyone sees you naked, right? Like just that whole vulnerability of being exposed, people seeing the real you, your secrets coming out. This is an aspect of fear that has been used by others to manipulate me in major ways. If you tell, I'll tell a secret on you. Chris Rath did it a number of times with scandalous emails between Roy and myself that were on the school district server. Terrible, terrible threats of exposure, right? I did a podcast episode about friendships 2 weeks ago. And this definition comes to mind. Emergence, the process of coming into being or of becoming important or prominent. In my desire and decision to be honest about two friendships that I am no longer active in, I don't feel vulnerable or laid open at all. I feel empowered. I feel that I'm standing up for myself, that I'm speaking the truth or I'm speaking my truth. I tried to do it in a way that wouldn't hurt anybody, but I was very clear with why I was where I was at. And the challenge now with both of these, tea spills is to live the reality of the fallout of what may come. So where am I now? When I woke up this morning, why was I thinking of emergence? Well, I have two situations in my life at the moment. One involves Kenny and my family and some dynamics, and one involves the school board and some dynamics there. Carolina, my therapist, pointed out to me that families and school boards, they're systems. In one of my thumbnails for last week's episode or 2 weeks ago episode on friendships, I talk about being like the black sheep of the school board, that everyone's angry at me and upset all the time. One of my school board member friends spoke to me about it. I'm tired of you trashing the school board and saying that we hate you, which I disagreed with, but she did this in front of other people. I pointed out that maybe that's a part of why I feel the way I do. We have agreed to meet for coffee. And of course, by the time you hear this, we will have met for coffee already. So maybe look for a live today on my meeting with my friend. I have these two situations, both of which involve systems, family system, school board system, or board, it could be city council, it could be legislature, whatever, systems. And I'm a piece of each system. Each system has certain roles that need to be fulfilled. And one of the roles that needs to be fulfilled is black sheep. Every system needs a black sheep. Every system needs the person that will call out what's going on. Every system needs somebody that doesn't just agree with the system because they're in the system. And I realize that's who I am. And this led me back to an email that I received shortly after the school board hearing. An email I received, it was actually a post online from a citizen in the community after the school board hearing when I was the lone vote on saying no to the expensive middle school. And this person said, "Barb, I can't thank you enough for your straight up courage. It was your statements last Thursday night at the public hearing and later on Facebook that kept me from utter despair over this city that I love. You are vox clementis in deserto, but that is what gives us hope and energy to carry on." So vox clementis in deserto comes from a Latin term, voice in the darkness. And in Isaiah, it's got biblical connections in the book of Isaiah, but it essentially means the voice, the words of a wise one who is ignored. I felt honored and complimented that this person thought I was the wise voice and could acknowledge that oftentimes my voice is ignored. I've had two situations in the last week, one involving my family, one involving school board, where I have felt ignored. Not necessarily actively ignored family-wise, but knowing that somebody else making the same request I make is listened to more quickly. I think back to a meeting where I made a suggestion, and about 5 minutes later, a male member of the committee made the same suggestion, and the male chairperson acknowledged his suggestion as his. And the person that made the same one I did said, well, Barb made the same suggestion 5 minutes ago and you ignored it, so I thought I'd make it. And it was embarrassing for the chairperson. So that's sometimes how being ignored feels in the political setting. I also know that words have power and that people's lives can be decimated and hurt and ruined by the words of others, true or otherwise. That was my situation in Bo. The horrible manipulation of truth and the words used to manipulate said truth were devastating to me. And in resharing it and sharing the whole story and going through the whole fall and all the steps that occurred, it was incredibly helpful for me and healing, catharsis, cleansing it. And I would have no trouble now very publicly defending myself around all of those things. The same holds true for my job loss. When I shared about that, I was still in a very tender place. So Emergence, here in November of 2025. Right now I am at a fork in the road. I have a strong innate desire to keep things the same. And this comes from a place of fear and a place of survival. Brings me back to my chaotic childhood when the details of my life were swirling around me and I just tried to keep things the same. Choose a good day and try to keep everything like that. And then I think of my desire to change, to not wake up once again in a cluttered house, still 5 pounds overweight, still can't do double unders, still haven't followed through on so many goals, still finishing a financial year for the foundation with no money, still spending more money than I make, far more money than I make, feeling frustrated and taken advantage of and not listened to. Poor me, wah, right? So but I need to make a change. In my survival method of thinking, I'm all or nothing. If I make this change, if I do this, then this will happen. And I don't leave any room for the gray, for the possibilities, for the what ifs. Carolina spent a long time talking to me about perspective, how I back myself into a corner, I put myself into a box. And then I need to get out of the box. Stop fighting the box and bashing myself into it. Just stand up and step out of the box. You can't have perspective from inside the box. The more she said to me, the more I thought back to all of the health education lessons I gave and all the advice I give and all the things I say on these damn podcast episodes that I should make believe I'm not me and listen to myself. And in the replaying of some of them and re-looking at things in my life and spilling some tea, I'm just realizing that I'm not spinning my wheels. I'm not staying in the same place. We tend to look at life as linear. And when you think of it, life is a circle. So I don't know where I saw this, but I just saw this, I think on the socials in the middle of the night. But picture a circle, picture 3 o'clock on the circle, and traumatic event occurs. But you live your life like a spiral. You don't live your life in a linear fashion. We go back and forth all the time. When you're teaching elementary school students, you teach things and then you go away and then you spiral back and reteach them. And then you spiral back and reteach. And eventually by the third or fourth spiral back, that task, that concept is solid now. The children have learned it. Not all children can learn it the first time around. Life is the same way. So I'm at 3 o'clock on a given circle and an event happens and I live my life and I continue along and I continue along. And then my life comes back to that event. Now I'm not in the same circle now. I'm outside that original circle because I'm traveling along, but the event is still a stopping point. And so I navigate my way around the event. The line would go around the event and then the circle continues. And now I'm in my third circle from the original circle and I'm coming around and there's the event again. Every time you revisit a traumatic event or a behavior or a thought process or an action that you've dealt with or experienced in the past, you now bring with it a year's growth or a month's growth or 5 years growth. You bring with it life and experiences that alter and change your relationship with the event. So some examples, I would love so much to be super honest and talk about school board, but so much of it I can't. But in the past several months, one of my biggest problems with the school board, and I've been vocal about this, is that it's an incredibly autonomous group. And I'm not negatively judging the reality of anybody on it. This is where I get frustrated. There is nothing wrong with being a white middle class to upper middle class woman living in Concord, New Hampshire. Nothing. There's nothing wrong with living in Ward 4 and Ward 5. Nothing. There is nothing wrong with being a liberal thinker. Nothing. There is nothing wrong with having all of you having children roughly the same age. None of those things are wrong. But when you have a governing body that's meant to make decisions on behalf of an entire city, which is full of people of all colors and all gender identifications and all sexes and all financial classes and all neighborhoods and all religious beliefs and all political beliefs, a 9-person board that has 7 people who are essentially the same person isn't healthy. So I take a lot of flack for that. I had a teacher warn me that saying such things would make the teachers hate me. I don't know, puzzles me. You don't look at a classroom full of white upper middle class girls. You have everyone in your class. You have to be a safe person for everyone in your class. So it's been hard for me. It's been incredibly difficult. My school board friend who made the comment that she wanted to speak with me about my podcast because she didn't like what I was saying, is embroiled in this. And so she's in the box. And I don't know. I haven't talked to her yet, although when you hear it, I will have. But I know that she sees things a certain way and she doesn't see how I'm treated. She doesn't see the eye rolls because they're taking place next to her. They aren't directed to her. I'm the oldest person on the board. Once Jim leaves, the oldest by age. I think Jim might be older than me. We have the same number of years on the board, although I came on a year ahead of him, but I had a year off where I didn't get reelected. I reran a year later. Everyone on that board will look me in the eye and say, "Oh, you have so much to offer. You have such background." And they say it to me, but they don't really want to hear it and they don't really want to use it to make decisions. And some of the board members, 2 that are on the executive committee especially, hate the fact that I try to bring up what happened in the past. They're very, very, very hell-bent on changing things. Flippant remarks and arrogance is hard on me. In a middle school conversation once, "Well, let's just move it and give it a new name." Well, okay, except I grew up here and I like the name of our middle school and I like where it is and it's a piece of the fabric of my past. Just because it's not your middle school, that's an example of what I mean. We were talking last night about the parks at a school board meeting, and we were talking about Concord cemeteries and how beautiful they are and how and one of the board members says, "Well, I think cemeteries are a waste of land." And I said, "You clearly don't have a dead child you like to visit." And she snarked at me. like snarked at me. Now, I don't know if maybe she didn't realize what she said, the magnitude of what she said, but it's this sort of attitude that pervades our board at the moment. My strong opinion is that public service is just that, service, and that you should serve with an air of humility, not with an air of arrogance. And this has been very difficult for me. So Emergence. I did that 12 episode season on breathing underwater. I should read that book again. But I go back again and again to the definition of insanity, and I realize that I just keep doing the same thing in a variety of different ways. And I keep sharing that I do this in a variety of different ways. And my promise to Carolina this week was to do one thing differently, to make one change, to institute one small change. At the same time, ponder what instituting a major change would create or cause. So I'm sitting in my empty house. I had a quasi-argument with Kenny to get the empty house for a couple of hours. I reminded him that everyone in this house has a room but me. He reminded me that 4 other people live in it besides me. So we're both right. I deserve to have time to myself here. And I have to be mindful that I share the house with other people that also pay to live here or didn't ask to be born. Change, emergence, rough water, giant boulders. When I think of the events in my life that have given me cause to think and to ponder and to pray, they aren't the happy ones. Maybe we should pay more attention to the things that brought us to our happy places rather than the happy places themselves. Winning a race, I always say, is so fun. But maybe when we win the race, if we truly reflect on what got us to that victory, what landed us first across that finish line, we can learn as much from the happy as we do from the sad. When I sit in my car and take notes, oftentimes I lose them. Carolina pointed out that one of my problems that keeps me hamster wheeling, instead of creating bigger circles and coming back to things with more knowledge, I can often hamster wheel. That in my past, I wasn't ever allowed to be angry. I had to please everybody and take care of everybody. I had to remain quiet. I had to be obedient. I had to hold the fabric of the family together. So as an adult, I have limiting beliefs. I'm very black and white, if or. I have a limiting belief. So for example, if I speak up on the school board, then XYZ would happen. I would lose my seat, or They won't like me. I don't even know what I'm afraid of anymore, which was an eye-opener for me because I should stop being afraid. I was talking about some of the dynamics of the family and that sometimes I felt like I needed to separate and get out of here, that Kenny and I need a break from one another. We have habits we need to change. And she said, well, have him move out. One of you go live at Coach's. One of you, whatever. One of you leave. Do this. And I said, if I do that, I have to give up everything. I can't single-handedly raise a child. I have hours of the day that I need Kenny's support. He's a wonderful dad. So I black and whited it right away. Survival mode. I just have to keep what I have because it's better than what I could have. Really, really negative thinking. I did a lesson in my class. I've talked about this before as well, where I'd have the students line the desks up. There were all these different shades of grayish, purplish blue, light to dark. And I'd have them line them up, light to dark. And I put a piece of black paper on one end and a piece of white paper on the other and say, the only two absolutes in life are black and white. The sun is hot. That's an absolute. There's no tepid fire in that ball, there's no tepid temperature in that ball of fire. Water is wet. Water is never dry. Even when it's ice, it's wet. You hold on to it and it melts. It's wet. Has moisture. 99.9% of life is all those desks in the middle that are gray. I am so willing to help other people manage the gray, acknowledge the gray, accept the gray as the reality. And I hold myself to this firm standard of black and white. And that just isn't how it is. That's not life at all. What I want very much is to be able to share in my next episodes things that have changed, things that are better. That's what I want. I stopped digging. I threw the shovel away. I'm out of the hole now. You're listening to this 2 days before Thanksgiving, the holiday that we're supposed to sit back and slow down and reflect and find gratitude even in the uglies. Losing a child changes the flavor of every holiday. None of us could face them for years. I remember our first Thanksgiving, I believe it was 2019, might have been 2018. We went to dinner at Alan's restaurant, our whole family, and we all had Molly B shirts, and I drank a pile of vodka because that's what you do. Probably got high after with Doug. But it was the first time that we sort of acknowledged the holiday, and we did it in a different way. Emergence. We had to make a change. We had to institute a change so that we could move forward in a healthy way. Anger. 6th stage of grief, right? Well, it's in there. Actually, it's probably in the 5 stages of grief, but it's treated so unfairly sometimes, like it's negative and we should avoid it. And I wasn't allowed to be angry. I wanted to be. And I've evidenced anger throughout my life, really probably directed toward myself more than the people I'm mad at. And so Carolina's challenge to me over the next couple of weeks is to stop seeing anger as a trigger to black and white thinking or to survival mode thinking. Rather, see it as a trigger to start thinking in possibilities. When I'm in a creative mindset, when I'm thinking creatively and open, so let's go back to the 2 versions of emergence. The breaking free and here I am, or the, oh no, I'm exposed. So survival mode is fear of exposure, and creative mode is show the world who you are. Start thinking of anger as a trigger to start thinking in possibilities, creative mode. And she wants me to insert things. What needs to happen for me to do blank is blank. Even if I write something completely undoable in my mind, it's the way that I need to think about it. What needs to happen for me to organize my house is to set aside 3 days and hire some help. I could set aside 3 days of my life to organize my house, and I could hire help. I have friends that would love to earn a few extra bucks. I could hire a professional organizer to come. I could do a lot of these things. What needs to happen for me to organize my house is I need to set aside 3 days and get a dumpster. There's a catharsis in filling a dumpster. What needs to happen for me to organize my house is I need to organize my fucking house. I send a weekly email and I'm starting to put these little quizzes in every week. And this past week was the first time I did it, and I'm the only one so far that answered the questions. So if you're on my email list, answer the questions for me because I'd love to see the percentages. So I'll close with some gratitude here in my very impromptu, real-time, here's what's happening in the life of Barb podcast. I'll actually close with a story. My neighbor Brian across the street died. He died on November 11th. Myself and a group of women have been caring for him for the past couple of years as his health has declined. He worked for several years at Walker School and then at Krista McAuliffe School. He impacted everyone he met. His death wasn't a surprise, but he fought it for a long time. Once he made the decision to go to hospice, it was not even 2 weeks. The day that he died, I was in a boot and I went for a massage. In organizing my day, I thought, oh, I could have the massage later and I'll go visit Brian before I go to the massage. Had I chosen that schedule, I would have seen him shortly before he took his last breaths. I may have even been there when that happened. But I didn't. I went to my massage first. And so when I went up to hospice to see him, there was a sign on the door saying, before you go in the room, see a nurse. And so I was confused. And some of the orderlies in the hallway and the LNAs and such just looked at me and didn't say much. So I got a text on my phone that Brian had died. So I went in and sat with him for a while. He looked amazing. He looked more comfortable. His color was better. Like everything about him just looked better than he has looked in months. I talked to him. I said a Baha'i prayer for the departed. I held his hand. I kissed his forehead. And then I sat in the bed and sang John Denver, Country Roads, Take Me Home. That was a favorite song of Brian's, and he would share with me that when he went for rides with Barb, they'd put music on in the car and sing along together. So I sang it to him and told him that I hoped that the country road that took him to wherever he is now was a good one and that it wasn't scary and that he was able to feel whatever love awaited for him on the other side. So on top of school board issues and home issues and friendship issues and money issues and all of it, my good friend Brian died. I don't remember all the reasons I may have missed a visit here or there when it came to visiting Brian. I know sometimes caring for him was on a list of all the things I needed to do. It never felt like a task, but it became one sometimes. I don't even remember what I had to do that was more important than going to see him. And so this is what I have to invoke when it comes to choices I make in my daily life and standing up for myself. So Thanksgiving, a time to give thanks. We all know now that the Thanksgiving story I was taught in elementary school is bogus, pile of crap. You had a bunch of white Western Europeans taking over indigenous land, calling it theirs. There are lots of ways to work together and live together. There are lots of ways to be good people. And there's lots to be thankful for. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in Harrisburg because I love Kenny's family. And his brother shouldn't be alive right now, and he is. Unbelievably miraculous survival of essentially a heart attack that should have killed him. So I'm looking forward to that. Harrisburg is fun, Camp Hill, that whole area, it's beautiful. And that'll be a nice break from Concord. And it will be fun to spend time on the bands-off side of things with Gracie and Jack and all their relatives. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Be good to yourself on Thanksgiving. Take that extra serving of turkey. Or my favorite, canned cranberry sauce. I'm all about the canned. Be good to someone else. If there's only one slice of canned cranberry sauce left, let the person sitting next to you have it if they want it. Or cut it in half, maybe. And as always, along with Happy Thanksgiving, have a good day, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at Barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.